Hey guys, what's up? It's Savannah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another true crime episode here. Before we get started, I want to remind you to subscribe if you are not already, and also I have this video in podcast form. If you are unaware, I have a podcast called Killer Instinct and it is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and every other podcast platform. So if you want to go ahead and listen to the podcast version of this and all the other true crime cases that I have covered, you can go ahead and do so. The link is always in the description box below. Before we get started, I want to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. If you guys have never heard of BetterHelp before, BetterHelp is an online counseling service that provides you counseling in the comfort of your own home. All you have to do is go ahead and sign up online. I'll have the link in the description box below. And after you sign up, you will be matched with a counselor that is deemed best to suit your needs. BetterHelp has counselors that specialize in depression, anxiety, grief, LGBTQ+ matters, relationships, family trauma, and so much more. And you guys will be able to set up phone sessions, text messages, as well as video sessions with your counselor whenever you feel like you need it. You can also text them at any time throughout the day. BetterHelp has helped me a ton, and if you guys want to sign up as well, you can use the link in the description box below and use the discount code INSTINCT, and by using that code, you will get 10% off your first month using BetterHelp. Again, that's just betterhelp.com/instinct. So thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this video, and now let's move on with the rest of the case. So as you guys can tell by the title of today's video, today we are talking about the unsolved disappearance of 49-year-old Suzanne Morphew. Suzanne went missing on May 10th of this year, 2020, in Maysville, Colorado. I chose this case for this week because new developments are constantly coming out on this case every single day. It is still a very much an active investigation, and a quote directly from the county sheriff on this case is, quote, "This case remains very active as more than a dozen investigators are aggressively working this case on a daily basis," end quote. There is also a $200,000 reward out for anyone who can lead to Suzanne's safe return with no questions asked. So with that being said, let's just jump right on into it today. Suzanne Morphew is a 49-year-old woman. She is a wife to her husband Barry and a mother to her two daughters Macy and Mallory. Suzanne originally grew up in Alexandria, Indiana, and then she moved to Colorado a few years back. Suzanne has an older brother named Andrew, and according to Andrew, he said, quote, "When Suzanne walked into a room, she would light it up. She was just a really kind person. Everybody loved her. I don't think you'll find a soul that says they didn't love my sister," end quote. So once the family moved to Colorado, they moved to Maysville, Colorado, and they seemed to be living a very idyllic life. Barry worked as a landscaper contractor. They lived in a beautiful home. They went on family vacations. From the outside looking in, as it always does, things seemed to be going really great for this family. A family friend described their family dynamic as, quote, "The family structure where the husband loves being the provider and the wife loves being the homemaker. They fit that to a T," end quote. So let's talk about what was going on leading up to Suzanne's disappearance. Now, May 10th was Mother's Day weekend, and on this particular weekend, Suzanne's daughters were actually out of town. They were on a camping trip out of state, so it was just Suzanne and her husband Barry. Now, on May 10th, Barry was actually scheduled to go up to Denver, and he was going there for a work project, and Denver was about 2.5 hours away from where Barry and Suzanne's house was. Now, what we know from Suzanne is that on May 9th, so just the day prior to her disappearance, from the hours of 2 p.m. to 9 p.m., she was active on social media. And she was messaging a friend of hers on social media, and the two of them were talking about this trip that they were planning on taking together. However, pretty abruptly, the communication ended from Suzanne's side. So Suzanne, at some point around 9 p.m., stopped responding responding to this friend. Now, even though communication stopped from Suzanne's side with this particular friend, she did have some activity on her social media profiles. However, according to Suzanne's closest family and friends, they said that Suzanne's activity was kind of suspicious and they didn't believe that it was actually her on the profile, just because of some of the things that she was commenting and responding with, just the way she was wording things. It didn't sound like it was coming from her. Now, there hasn't been any release of what these conversations were or what these comments were that deemed out of character for Suzanne, so that's really all we have to go off of on that front. So now let's move on to May 10th. According to Barry, he said that he woke up and left their home at about 5 o'clock a.m. and when he woke up, he said that Suzanne was sleeping right next to him. However, because it was so early, he didn't want to wake her up, and so he let her keep sleeping and he started to make the drive to Denver. Like I said, it was a 2.5-hour drive, and May 10th is Mother's Day. That was Mother's Day this year. And so a couple hours after he left the house, Barry said that he texted Suzanne wishing her a happy Mother's Day. However, he never received a response from her. Now, sometime during the day on May 10th, it is presumed that Suzanne went on a bike ride by herself. Now, according to Barry, he said that this is not an unusual thing for Suzanne. She is an avid biker. She bikes constantly, pretty much every day, and where she bikes basically varies. It could either be through trails on the mountain or it could just be through neighboring areas. It really just depended on the day. And Suzanne has never had a problem with biking. For someone who is such an avid biker, such an outdoors type of woman who just bikes every day, she's never had a problem with it. She's never run into any issues. However, on May 10th, something unexpected happened. Suzanne went out on a bike ride that day and never made it home. Now, Suzanne's daughters on May 10th were actually trying to get a hold of their mother because, like I said, it was Mother's Day. They were trying to call her to wish her a happy Mother's Day. However, after multiple attempts and not hearing anything back, which was very unusual for Suzanne, the daughters decided to call Barry and let him know that they've been trying to get in contact with their mom, but she wasn't answering. Now, when Barry heard this, he then called their next door neighbor. He called their neighbor and asked her to go over to their home and just do a quick little welfare check and see if Suzanne was there, if she was okay, if something was wrong. And the neighbor agreed to do this. So the neighbor walked over to Barry and Suzanne's home, and that is when the neighbor called Barry back and told him that everything seemed fine, that nothing really seemed out of the ordinary, that Suzanne's car was in the driveway, nothing seemed out of place. However, the one thing that was missing was Suzanne's bike, as well as Suzanne. So Suzanne and her bike were both not at the home, which is what led this entire story of Suzanne went on a bike ride. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's really the only reason that it is presumed that she went on a bike ride, is because her bike as well as herself were missing. Now, this phone call between the neighbor and Barry happened at about 5 p.m. on Sunday evening. And according to Barry, he said that this was unusual for Suzanne. She wouldn't go this long without returning someone's phone calls, without getting in touch with her family and her daughters. And biking this late wasn't really something that she did very often. So according to Barry, when he got this news from his neighbor, he said, quote, "He rushed home, left all my tools at the hotel, called my workers and said, I've got a family emergency. You're gonna have to figure this one out on your own." End quote. Because remember, Barry at this time was in Denver, 2.5 hours away, working on a project. Now, the neighbor who went to Suzanne's house to see if she was there and realized that she wasn't was actually the one who filed the missing persons report. The missing persons report was filed at 5:46 p.m. on May 10th, 2020. When the neighbor called 911, she told the operator that Suzanne went on a bike ride and had never made it home. Now, once authorities got this phone call, the search began immediately. They searched all through the Maysville area. They brought in search dogs right away and brought in the search and rescue team. The search began in the early evening hours on May 10th and went all through the night into the early morning hours. However, Suzanne was nowhere to be found. Now, even though the authorities were unable to find Suzanne at this point, they did find another very big piece of evidence, which was her bike. So authorities were able to locate Suzanne's bike as well as a personal item. Now, this personal item has never been disclosed. Authorities have never come out and said what the item is. It's been presumed that it could have been her helmet. However, it's never been confirmed. Suzanne's bike was not found far from her home at all. And I haven't been able to find the exact distance. However, there is a 3D map online that I will put up right here. And this 3D map shows where the home is and where her bike and the personal item was found. The bike was found off the side of the road, and according to the map, there appears to be an off-road right off of Highway 50, and that is where the bike was discovered. The specific area is west of County Road 225 and Highway 50, right outside of Maysville. And of course, once authorities found the bike and found the area that the bike was in, that is where they targeted their search right away, because they thought if that's where Suzanne's bike was, there was a good chance that she could also be found in that area as well if there was some sort of accident. So the search carried over into the next day, which was May 11th. And at this time, the sheriff enlisted the TAC team. And if you are unaware, a TAC team is a unit of carefully selected individuals who are trained in the legal, psychological, and tactical aspects of their mission. So they're a pretty big deal, and they were brought in just the day after Suzanne was reported missing. Authorities also had helicopters flying over the area, and they also set up a dedicated tip line for anyone who had any information about Suzanne. And by May 17th, divers had searched bodies of water in the area, however, came up empty-handed in that as well. And authorities also asked neighbors of the family to look through any video surveillance they had from Ring doorbells and security cameras from May 8th to May 12th. Now, the reason that authorities wanted people to be mindful of their Ring doorbells in those time frame dates was to see if there were any suspicious people. Even though Suzanne did go missing on May 10th and not May 8th, authorities wanted people to be mindful of just the days leading up to Suzanne's disappearance. If anything seemed out of the ordinary, if they saw a suspicious person or a vehicle or something along those lines, authorities just wanted people to be mindful of that. So authorities knew pretty much right off the bat when this whole investigation started that there was no way that Suzanne left on her own free will. Suzanne loved her family. She absolutely adored her daughters so much. She loved being a mom. It was her pride and joy, and there was just no way that she was going to leave that behind for whatever reason. There wasn't a reason in the world that Suzanne would ever leave her daughters voluntarily. So because of that, authorities knew that they now had to look at this case with the possibility that foul play could have been involved. And they started looking at potential suspects. Now, as in every case that we have seen, every case that you have probably heard of, and kind of the rule of thumb in these types of investigations, you always look at the people who are closest to the victim. And more specifically, you typically look at the spouse. Statistically, the people that are closest as well as spouses are the most likely to have had something to do with their disappearance. Now, Barry, being Suzanne's husband, has gone under a lot of scrutiny for Suzanne's disappearance. Some people have compared him to Chris Watts, and as we go through his timeline of events, it's going to be very interesting to see where you guys kind of lie on the spectrum of him being innocent or guilty. Obviously, it's innocent until proven guilty in all cases, and also I'm sorry for this light right here. It's just, I'm working on it. We have to look at cases always as innocent until proven guilty. That's how law works. You know, it's innocent until proven guilty. However, I'm very interested to see where you guys lie on this and what you think. So we're gonna get into that right now. So like I said, Suzanne and Barry were together. They were alone together the weekend of May 10th. And according to Barry, on May 10th, he woke up and Suzanne was laying right next to him, and he got in his car and drove up to Denver, the 2.5-hour drive to Denver, to work on this landscaping project. However, Barry wasn't the the only person working on this project. He also had 3 other employees working on this project with him. And how I'm going to split this up is we are going to talk about the first 2 employees that have been talked about more publicly, and then we will move on to the 3rd employee. First 2 employees that were working with Barry on this project were Jeff Puckett and Morgan Gentile. Now, Jeff Puckett does have a previous record. He was in prison for about 9 years. I was unable to find what the charge against him was. However, he was in prison for 9 years. And according to Barry, he said that he, quote, gave him a job and an opportunity, end quote. Now, when it comes to this Denver project, Barry said that this project was not some last minute project. They had actually been planning this project for about a month in advance. However, Morgan has a very different version of that. Now, according to Morgan, she said that this project was actually meant to be done at the end of April. However, it got pushed back by Barry to May 1st and then got pushed back by Barry again to May 10th. So there had been multiple delays in this project leading up to when it actually happened on May 10th. Now, according to Morgan, she said that Barry's behavior that entire weekend was very, very bizarre. Barry had worked on a beach site on Friday, May 10th, and then the next day on Saturday, May 9th, he asked Morgan to join him on the beach site to help him level it out. And according to Morgan, she said, quote, he was acting really weird about the beach area. I was like, Barry, what's up? He seemed stressed. He definitely seemed weird Saturday. Now, Morgan also said that when Barry booked her for Saturday to work with him, she was expecting to work all day. She expected this to be an all-day job. However, Barry actually released her from working with him at about 11 a.m. on Saturday, which again, she said was very unexpected. Morgan said, quote, he said that he had to go make the wife happy, do some hiking or biking, end quote. However, Morgan said that after leaving the job, she then found out later that Barry was not spending time with Suzanne and that instead he was out in the town shopping by himself. Now, this could go one of 2 ways because it was Mother's Day the next day. So if Barry was out shopping, buying something for Suzanne for Mother's Day, that kind of would fall into the category of trying to make the wife happy. And also, Barry doesn't necessarily owe Morgan an explanation as to what he's doing. However, because he said he had to go make the wife happy and then was caught doing something completely different, it raises eyebrows for sure. So let's talk about this 3rd employee. Like I said, we had Morgan and Jeff Puckett, and then there is a 3rd employee that was a part of this whole thing, and that is a woman named Cassidy Cordova. Now, since Suzanne's disappearance, Cassidy has been the only employee out of the 3 to really remain out of the spotlight and declined to give any interview regarding Suzanne's disappearance. Both Morgan and Jeff Puckett have been very vocal in the media, and Cassidy has done the exact opposite. In fact, the only real statement from Cassidy out there is a text message that she sent. Now, I wasn't able to figure out who she sent this text message to. However, I am so interested to hear what you guys have to think about this text message. And just to give you some context, this text is in regards to the fact that she wasn't speaking publicly and why she wasn't really saying anything. She said, quote, the rumors are so blasphemous that it's laughable at this point. Like, you really believe all this stuff that people are saying? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Let my silence be taken the wrong way then. Well, anyone that should know better than to believe something that someone else said about someone else. There might be a reason I don't want to talk publicly. There might not be. I'll leave that for you and whoever else wants to ponder that thought. Personally, I will say that that text has a very angry and harsh undertone to it. It seems very aggressive. We're gonna circle back around on Cassidy and Morgan in a second. Now, when it comes to Sunday, May 10th and the Denver project, Morgan said that everything happened very quickly and very suddenly and very last minute. She said, quote, last minute, Barry changed everything. In fact, he called me that Sunday, Mother's Day, and was really frantic. He didn't sound like himself. I hung up the phone and thought that he just had the worst night of his life. end quote. Now, regardless of how Morgan perceived Barry's behavior, she said that she did agree to pick up Jeff Puckett and drive the two of them to Denver to work on this project. Now, plans changed again when at about 6:10 p.m. Morgan received another phone call from Barry saying that he had a family emergency and was not going to be able to complete the project with them, and that they were basically just going to have to figure out the project on their own. He said that he left them all the materials that they would need and that he just had a family emergency and couldn't be there. He didn't elaborate on it, and then he hung up the phone. Now, this Denver project was taking place at a hotel. It was the Holiday Inn and Express in Broomfield. Sorry, I keep changing the location. I'm trying to get away from the sun, but that is the hotel that this Denver project took place at. Now, you have to remember, for the entire day that Barry was in Denver, he was also staying at this hotel in a hotel room, and that is the same room that Morgan and Jeff arrived into when they got to the hotel. Barry left his house at about 5 o'clock. He would have gotten to Denver at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and he left at about 5:30 after he got the phone call from his neighbor. So he spent a good majority of the day at this hotel room. So when Jeff and Morgan arrived at the hotel as well, that is the same room that they both went to. Now, according to both of them, when they walked into this hotel room, the hotel room absolutely reeked of the smell of chlorine. Morgan said, quote, "We opened the door and I mean, like the chlorine hit you and my eyes started watering and burning. Towels were super wet on the floor and it looked like Barry had made the bed before he left." End quote. Now, Jeff was also asked about this chlorine smell in a separate interview, and he said, quote, "I mean, I'm not going to beat around the bush. It did. It smelled real strong," in reference to the chlorine smell. Jeff also said that the room looked like it had been used and the bed looked like it had been made. He said, quote, "Maybe he got in the room, took a shower, and that was it. Just washed up and left." Now, I'm not exactly certain what the sleeping arrangements were for this night, because at least Jeff and Morgan spent the night at this hotel on Sunday night. I don't know about Cassidy because she just hasn't said anything. So, however, both Jeff and Morgan did spend the night at this hotel, and I'm not sure what the sleeping arrangements were, but what I do know is that Jeff stayed in the room that Barry was in. So the room that smelled like chlorine, Jeff had also stayed in that room that night. And it was the next morning that Jeff said that he discovered a letter in the trash can of the hotel room. And this letter was addressed to Barry. It was a piece of mail addressed to Barry, and it was property insurance. And according to Jeff, he said, quote, "When I found the mail the next morning, it just looked like an alibi, just the way things was." End quote. Now, the next day, Jeff and Morgan received a phone call from Barry. So this was May 11th. So it had been one night since Suzanne had disappeared. And Barry told Jeff and Morgan that Suzanne had gotten attacked by a mountain lion. He said that a mountain lion attacked Suzanne and that they were spending the day going up into the mountain looking for her. This is a little strange, because if you didn't know that Suzanne got attacked by a mountain lion, why would you say that Suzanne got attacked by a mountain lion? And we will get into the mountain lion theory later, because there is one reason that he could have said that. However, this was not a definite. This was not confirmed that Suzanne got attacked by a mountain lion. So for him to call his employees and say that she got attacked by a mountain lion, that was just an assumption. However, he told it to Jeff and Morgan as if it was fact, but it was not. Now, on May 10th, when the employees, Jeff and Morgan and Cassidy, got to the hotel, and Barry had told them that he left all of his tools there for them to complete the project, he didn't leave them the correct tools. So they actually weren't able to complete the project. They couldn't get it done. So the next day, on May 11th, they drove back from Denver. And once they returned home is when Jeff gave the authorities the property insurance letter. So he handed that off to authorities. Now, before we move any further, I think that the general consensus that you can get here, and you will definitely be able to solidify as we continue, is that this case has a lot of he said, she said. There is a lot of back and forth in this case between Barry and his employees. It is a constant he said, she said battle. So now I want to talk about Morgan, because Morgan has also been under a lot of scrutiny in this case, because a lot of people have questioned whether or not Morgan and Barry have been having an affair, and that's what possibly could have led to Suzanne's disappearance. If Barry needed a motive and an affair was a motive, a lot of people have said, well, maybe he had an affair with Morgan. He spent a ton of time with her, he employed her, they worked on tons of projects together, so people thought it wasn't very far-fetched, or that it's not very far-fetched. Now, both Morgan and Barry have completely denied the accusations against them. They have said that they have not been having an affair, and along with that, Barry actually fired Morgan after all of this came out and after she started speaking to the media. And Barry and Morgan both have two very different reasons as to why she was fired. According to Morgan, she said, quote, "He fired me because I gave up my phone. I wasn't staying quiet and I was complying with CBI. I feel like if he was innocent, he would have talked to me. I worked with him every day for a long time." So Morgan saying that she was fired because she spoke out to the media, she was complying with the authorities, and she wasn't keeping her mouth shut. Now, according to Barry, he said that he fired her because, quote, "She's a meth head. She's mad at me because I fired her and don't let her work for me anymore. She's mad, so they're not going to say anything good about me," end quote. One problem I have about Barry's quote is he never really gave a reasoning as to why he fired her other than she's a meth head, but he also then just went on to say she's mad at me because I fired her, and then went on to talk to the police. So basically Barry is saying he fired her, and in retaliation Morgan went on to talk to the authorities, and Morgan saying she talked to the authorities and because of that Barry fired her. Now, personally, in my opinion, and you guys can let me know yours as well, I do not believe that Barry and Morgan had an affair. And if anything, my eyebrows are more raised at Cassidy Cordova, the girl who sent that text message saying there might be a reason I don't want to speak publicly, there might not be. Now, that may just be some condescending, insensitive, tasteless thing to say. However, there was such a harsh and angry undertone in that text message that it makes me wonder if she's holding something back because she wants to either protect herself or protect Barry. If she fell in love with Barry and doesn't want this to come in between her and his relationship, or if she's helping him cover something up. And again, that's just a theory that we will get into, but I look more at Cassidy Cordova in this than I do at Morgan, but you guys can let me know what you think on that. Now, I want to talk about the chlorine smell in the hotel room for a second. According to Barry, he said that there was no reason that he personally caused that chlorine smell, that the chlorine smell was there when he got there. He didn't go into the pool while he was at the hotel, and he basically blamed the smell most likely on the fact that the hotel was probably using a stronger cleaning chemical because it was around the time of COVID, or it still is COVID, but it was COVID back then too. He said that they were probably using a stronger cleaning chemical. Now, the hotel manager has since come out and said that not only was the pool closed during this time because of COVID, which again, Barry said he never even went in the pool to begin with. However, they do not use chlorine as their cleaning chemical. They use something completely different that's not chlorine whatsoever. So there really wasn't any reason for the room to be smelling like chlorine unless someone brought that into the room. Now, the hotel room wasn't the only place where there was a concerning smell. According to Suzanne's older brother, Andrew, he was informed by the authorities that there was a strong smell of bleach coming from Suzanne's home when they searched it. And along with this bleach smell, authorities also brought up their concern that they didn't find any coolers in the home. Now, you may be wondering why that matters at all, but the reason authorities said that this sparked their concern was because this was a very outdoors type of family. Barry was an outdoors type of guy. He liked to go hunting, he liked to go fishing, he liked to go camping, and those are activities that a cooler is involved in. They live in Colorado. He's an outdoors guy. You're typically going to bring coolers if you're going to go camping, or if you're going to go on an outdoor excursion or something like that, you're going to bring a cooler. So authorities thought it was very interesting that there was was not any coolers found in the house. They said that they were expecting to see at least one or two, but the fact that they saw none was very questionable to them. Now, as far as the search for Suzanne goes, authorities have searched endlessly for Suzanne. They searched Highway 50 and they actually closed down Highway 50 for a little bit in order to conduct an accurate search. By May 15th, just 5 days after Suzanne went missing, there had been 90 searchers searching for Suzanne in a 2.5-mile radius. However, she was still not found. On May 16th, so 6 days after Suzanne's disappearance, the FBI was actually brought in on this case. So they've been on this case as well. And like I mentioned earlier, authorities brought in helicopters, canine dogs, everything that you can imagine, and Suzanne has still not been discovered. So that's the case. That is pretty much the case that we have to go off of now. And now what we can do is talk about theories. So let's just bite the bullet on the biggest theory here, and that is that Barry had something to do with Suzanne's disappearance. Now, I am always very reluctant to talk about the spouse having some involvement in their husband or wife's disappearance when there are children involved, because I think that it is an extremely sensitive and damaging subject. And the last thing I want to do is sit up here and talk about a theory of someone's father being involved in the disappearance of their mother when it's not true. That is the farthest thing that I ever want to do. However, because I do think that there are certain question marks in this case that don't add up, I think that it is important to not leave any stone left unturned and talk about all the possibilities. So we're going to talk about Barry for a second. Now, as far as motive goes, when it comes to Barry, there have been multiple different possible motives that have been brought up. The first one was life insurance / property insurance. Like I said, that letter that was found in the trash can at the hotel room, it's just a weird thing to find at the time that it was found, and people have thought that maybe Barry did something to Suzanne in order to pull out a life insurance policy on her. However, as far as I can tell from now, which it is September 23rd, Barry has not touched his wife's life insurance policy or the property insurance. There has been nothing that has come forward about that. The second motive, as we discussed earlier, is an affair. He's been questioned to have an affair with Morgan Gentile. We talked about the possibility of it being Cassidy Cordova. It could be a totally different person that is not been talked about yet. But again, has there been any confirmation of an affair? Has anyone come out and said, I was having an affair with Barry? No, no one has come out and said that. Would they come out and say that if that was their plan all along and the two of them were working together on doing this? Probably not. But no one has come out and said that they have had an affair with Barry as of now. There also could have just been a fight. There could have been a fight that escalated out of control. I know we talked in the beginning about this family being the very idyllic family and everything seeming picture perfect. However, as we know, things on the outside aren't always what appears to be on the inside. Maybe there was a fight that just escalated out of control. We don't know. We don't know what happened. I do think the one thing that just doesn't sit right with me about this is the fact that they were alone together all weekend, and Barry was said to have been acting strange, and Suzanne was online talking with a friend and then completely cut off communication after a certain point. And here's also what doesn't sit right with me, and this is kind of what I was saying earlier. The only reason we are sitting here and saying that Suzanne went on a bike ride is because Suzanne's bike was not found at the house and then was found down the street. Could it have been placed there? Barry was responsible for this. Could he have set this up to look like Suzanne either had a freak accident or got attacked by a mountain lion? Why is he telling people that she got attacked by a mountain lion when it has not been proven that she got attacked by a mountain lion? Why would you say just the day after your wife goes missing that she got attacked by a mountain lion and you're going to look for her body in the mountain? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. No one else was given the assumption that Suzanne had gotten attacked by a mountain lion and died. That was never an assumption. So what I'm saying is that it would have been very possible, given the fact that Barry and Suzanne were alone together this entire weekend, this apparent Denver project had been pushed back at least 2 times, that Barry very well could have premeditated this to look like something completely different happened to Suzanne. Now, I have two more quotes from Barry that say, quote, "I am innocent, 100% innocent. The social media and the news media has made it seem like I am a bad guy." End quote. And then he has another quote where he says, quote, "I love my wife. I would never hurt my wife. She's the light of my life and my daughter's lives. This whole thing is killing us, and that is why I want our privacy." Now let's move on to this mountain lion theory. Now, according to Barry, the reason that he believes that Suzanne was attacked by a mountain lion is because the day prior, on May 9th, authorities had reported to seeing mountain lion in the area. So that's kind of where he put two and two together. Authorities said there were mountain lions in the area. Suzanne went missing. She had to have been attacked by a mountain lion. Now, to give you some numbers, there have been 20 to 27 deaths by mountain lions in the past 125 years in both the US and Canada. So the likelihood for Suzanne to have died by a mountain lion is not impossible. However, it is very unlikely considering those numbers. 20 to 27 deaths in the US and Canada in 125 years. Mountain lion experts have also come out and said that it would be very unlikely for no trace of Suzanne to be left, meaning clothes, blood, drag marks. It would be very, very unlikely for no trace of her to be left behind. Now, the next theory here is that Suzanne was abducted. She was abducted by a stranger, whether she was either off-roaded, a car off-roaded her off to the side of the road and just picked her up that way. Now, as far as what is happening now, when you are seeing this, or when this is being uploaded at least, which is the 24th, Andrew, Suzanne's older brother, is actually leading a search today. And this search is going to continue over the next several days. So I know I'm going to be watching this case like a hawk, and I really recommend you guys do so as well. And I'll try to keep you guys updated if anything new comes out about this. There is currently, like I said, a $200,000 reward for Suzanne's safe return with no questions asked. I do want to mention, when it comes to Barry's involvement in the search, I have not seen a lot from him. I know that he posted a video, basically a plea to get Suzanne back. However, a lot of people criticized him for that video because they said that he was emotionless and it was heartless, and you know, people are going to find things to nitpick here and there. I am just very, very interested to see what you guys have to say about this case. So please let me know in the comments below what your theories are. And with that being said, you guys, that is going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another true crime video here on my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. I make videos 3 days a week, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. You should subscribe and join the family. I love you guys so much, and I'll be back in a couple days with a brand new video. Bye, guys.